Jennifer stood in the corner of a hospital room, watching machines monitor the fading heartbeat of the man who had raised her, and felt something close to terror rising up in her chest. Her father, Walter, had been fighting for 3 days, his body slowly shutting down after a long battle with heart failure, and every single monitor in that room seemed to be counting down towards something Jennifer wasn't ready to face. The room felt heavy, not just with grief but with a kind of suffocating fear that seemed to press against the walls, filling every corner with dread. Her mother sat frozen in a chair beside the bed, unable to speak. Her brother paced by the window, unable to sit still. Jennifer remembers looking at her father's pale, still face and thinking with a kind of desperate clarity, "I cannot let him leave this world in a room that feels like this." She walked to the side of his bed, took his hand, and did the only thing she knew left to do. She began to pray out loud. What happened in that hospital room over the next several minutes is something every person present has described the exact same way, though none of them can fully explain it. This is Jennifer's story. Walter had been a strong man his entire life, a former construction foreman who had built half the houses in his small town with his own 2 hands, a man his children had always seen as unshakable. So when his heart began failing 2 years earlier, it felt to Jennifer like watching the very foundation of her family slowly crumble. The last 2 years had been an exhausting cycle of hospital stays, medication adjustments, brief improvements followed by harder setbacks. Jennifer had become her father's primary caregiver alongside her mother, learning to manage his medications, driving him to appointment after appointment, watching the strong, steady man of her childhood grow smaller and more fragile with each passing month. She had prayed constantly throughout those 2 years, asking God for healing, for more time, for the strength to keep showing up for her parents the way they had always shown up for her. Some prayers seemed to be answered. There were good stretches, months where Walter felt almost like himself again, moments that let the whole family believe they might have more time than the doctors were suggesting. But 3 days before that hospital room encounter, Walter's heart had taken a turn none of them were prepared for. The doctors used words this time that left no real room for hope of recovery. His body was shutting down. It was, they gently explained, likely a matter of days, possibly even hours. The family had gathered from out of state, filling that hospital room with a heaviness Jennifer had never experienced before. Her mother, married to Walter for 42 years, could barely speak through her tears. Her brother, usually the calm, steady one in the family, paced anxiously, unable to sit still with the weight of what was happening. And Jennifer herself felt paralyzed by a fear she couldn't fully name, watching the man who had taught her to ride a bike, walked her down the aisle, and held each of her children the day they were born, now lying so still and fragile in that hospital bed. The room itself seemed to absorb all of that fear and grief, growing heavier by the hour, until Jennifer felt like she could barely breathe standing in it. Jennifer had always considered herself a woman of faith, but sitting in that hospital room, watching her father's chest rise and fall unevenly, she felt her own faith trembling under the weight of what was happening. She didn't know how to pray for healing anymore. The doctors had made it clear that wasn't coming. She didn't know what to ask for instead, but something rose up in her, an instinct deeper than her fear, and she walked to her father's bedside, took his weathered, familiar hand in hers and began to pray out loud, her voice shaking but growing steadier with every word. "Jesus, we don't know how to do this. We don't know how to say goodbye to him. But we know you do. We know you've walked through this valley before, and we know you're not afraid of it the way we are. So we're asking you to come into this room right now. Fill this space with your peace. Take away this fear that's suffocating all of us. Be with my dad right now, in whatever he's experiencing that we can't see. Hold his hand the way he's held ours his whole life. And Lord, if there's any fear in him right now, take it. Replace it with your peace, the kind of peace that doesn't make sense, the kind only you can give." She says she wasn't entirely sure what she was expecting when she finished praying. She wasn't asking for a miracle of healing. She simply didn't know what else to do with the fear filling that room. So she brought it to the only place she knew to bring it. Jennifer says what happened next is difficult to describe in a way that fully captures it, but every single person in that hospital room felt it happen at the exact same moment. As she finished her prayer, the atmosphere in the room began to shift gradually but unmistakably. Her mother, who had been crying uncontrollably just moments before, grew quiet, her breathing slowing, her shoulders relaxing for the first time in days. Her brother stopped pacing and sat down beside their mother, his own face softening from anxious tension into something that looked almost like calm acceptance. Jennifer herself felt the tight knot of fear in her chest loosen, replaced by a strange, settled peace she hadn't felt since this entire ordeal began. Even the room itself seemed different, though none of them could explain exactly how. The heaviness that had been pressing down on all of them for 3 days simply lifted, replaced by something Jennifer can only describe as tangible peace, as if some invisible weight had been physically carried out of that room. And then, remarkably, Walter's own breathing, which had been labored and uneven for hours, grew calm and steady. His face, which had been tight with what the nurses called signs of distress, visibly relaxed. He didn't wake up. He didn't speak. But something about him, something the entire family noticed simultaneously, seemed to settle into a peaceful stillness none of them had seen in days. A nurse who came in to check his vitals a short while later paused at the door, glancing around the room, and said something Jennifer has never forgotten. "It's so peaceful in here. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel it every time I walk in." Walter passed away peacefully 6 hours later, surrounded by his family in a room that Jennifer says never lost that sense of peace from the moment she finished praying until the moment he took his last breath. Jennifer says that hospital room experience fundamentally changed the way her family grieved her father's passing. The days and weeks that followed were still hard, still filled with tears and the ordinary heaviness that comes with losing someone so central to your life. But none of them ever forgot what they felt in that room. The tangible shift from suffocating fear into a peace that made no logical sense given the circumstances. Her mother has said many times since that whatever she felt in that room in her father's final hours is the reason she's been able to keep going since he passed. Not because the grief disappeared, but because she was given in that moment an undeniable assurance that Walter did not leave this world afraid. And that assurance became something she could hold on to through every hard day that followed. Jennifer's brother, who hadn't set foot in a church in over a decade, started attending again a few months later. He told Jennifer plainly that he couldn't explain what happened in that room using anything other than the presence of God, and he wasn't willing to walk away from that truth and pretend he hadn't experienced it. For Jennifer herself, that moment reshaped the way she understands prayer entirely. She had always thought of prayer primarily as a tool for asking God to change circumstances, to heal, to fix, to rescue. That day taught her something different. Sometimes prayer isn't about changing the outcome at all. Sometimes it's about inviting God into the outcome you cannot change, and watching him transform the atmosphere of your deepest pain into something that can still hold peace. "I didn't pray for a miracle that day," Jennifer says, "or at least I didn't think I was. I just prayed because I didn't know what else to do with the fear in that room. But looking back, I know now that peace, real, tangible, undeniable peace in the middle of losing my father, was the miracle. It was every bit as real as any healing could have been. Maybe you're facing a hospital room of your own tonight, or you have in the past, sitting beside someone you love as their body grows weaker, feeling that same suffocating fear pressing in from every corner. Maybe you don't know what to pray for anymore because the outcome you were hoping for no longer feels possible. Jennifer's story is a beautiful reminder that even when God doesn't change the outcome, he is still fully present, fully able to meet you in the hardest moments of your life and fill them with a peace that defies explanation. You don't have to have the right words. You don't have to know exactly what to ask for. You simply have to invite him in honestly the way Jennifer did, and trust that he knows exactly what your heart, and the hearts of everyone in that room, truly need. If you are walking through loss right now, or preparing to, know that peace is still available to you, even in the middle of grief that feels impossible to survive. It may not erase the pain. It may not answer every question you're carrying, but it can fill the room, settle the fear, and carry you through moments you never thought you'd have.